Together with Europe, North America is the world's most mature fleet region. It's characterized by its preference for open-end leasing, and it has predominantly a tool-of-trade fleet. For these types of fleets, maximizing the utilization rate is key. But the North American market is also open for initiatives in fleet electrification, with, for example, the announced investments of the Biden administration, and has an appetite for connected technology and telematics. In this session, you will learn how to set up a future-proof fleet program for North America. And this with Jorge Fernandez, Global Category Manager Car Fleet at Roche, David Hayward, Vice President, and Mike Kamnatar, Senior Vice President at NAFA Fleet Management Association, Rachel Johnson, Fleet Specialist, Region Americas at Cone Cranes Lifting Businesses, Ralph Wessel, Senior Manager Global Facilities, Fleet and Security at ARCO, and this regional stream will end with an exciting expert panel discussion with Kimberly Fisher, Global Fleet and Travel Manager at National Oilwell Varco, Tom Callahan, the CEO of Donlen, and Vincent Flans, President Corporate Sales at Sixt. Let's start to discover the North American fleet region. Even if you have the impression to be doing a quick tour along the most famous European statues, it's from Madrid that Jorge Fernandez, Global Category Manager Car Fleet at Roche, will share some insights about the North American fleet marketplace.
Hello everyone, my name is Jorge Fernandez. I am working for Roche as Global Category Manager for Fleet, based in Madrid, Spain. My position is allocated under Global Procurement function, from where we design and implement the global fleet and mobility strategy. Our fleet consists of 14,000 passenger cars in all regions, each of them with its own specificities. For example, North America, where our fleet consists of 3,000 vehicles and where open-ended leasing is the most accepted model. Compared to typical European programs, there are other significant aspects to be considered when thinking about North America. For example, longer distances, different body types of the cars, or different driver profiles. As international fleet managers, we need to address the diverse approaches of the regions and find the correct connections in order to build a common structure. When working with international fleets, you need to look for bridges to reduce the distance between different realities, helping to observe them from a common perspective. Finding patterns and commonalities may serve you to reach higher standards for your fleet and mobility strategy. The design of a global approach also needs to be adaptable to each region, which makes the definition of a global strategy more challenging. But that's also the beauty of our job. Looking forward to meeting you. Greetings from Madrid. Enjoy the event.
Thank you, Jorge Fernandez from Roche. It's a pleasure to have you with us during this Global Fleet Conference. To guide you through the North American fleet market, I have the pleasure to welcome David Hayward, Vice President, and Mike Kamnatar, Senior Vice President from NAFA Fleet Management Association, the biggest fleet management association in North America.
Hi, I'm David Hayward.
And hi, I'm Mike Kamnatar.
On behalf of NAFA, we're going to provide a quick overview of 6 topics affecting the North American fleet market, which is essentially the US and Canada. But first, let's give a short overview of the North American fleet market. The US fleet market is one of the largest in the world, coming in at $12.8 billion in commercial sales in 2019. By comparison, Canada is approximately 10% of that size. Within North America, it is very common for fleets to use a fleet management company, sometimes referred to as a leasing company, to facilitate not only the financing of the vehicle, but also other services, including maintenance, collision management, driver safety, and vehicle registration services. The fleet management solution market is expected to nearly triple in value by 2026. Many fleet management companies operate in different countries around the world, and others operate in global partnership with other fleet management companies. There are many options available to the commercial fleet manager in North America. As mentioned earlier, most fleets will use a fleet management company to provide the funding and financing necessary to operate a fleet. However, it is not unusual for a banking partner to provide this service. Interest rates have been at all-time lows, making leases a very attractive option. This frees up a company's capital for use in other areas of the business. Leasing is by far the most common financing method used in North America, and we will discuss the open-ended tract lease in more detail later in this presentation. The recent changes to the rules issued by FASB, or the Financial Accounting Standards Board, had some impact on the decisions made by companies, but that impact was pretty nominal. The traditional domestic American brands are the dominant players within the US and Canadian fleet markets. Many foreign brands have set up dedicated manufacturing in North America and do a blend of imports and local supply, while other brands, particularly the luxury brands, continue to import exclusively. Fleet remains a cornerstone for the auto manufacturers, and most brands have dedicated sales teams to facilitate the order-to-delivery processes. Think local but act global. Remember that every market has their own unique style and flavour, so when implementing any global initiative, it is important to recognise the local way of doing things and remain flexible in the execution. While the desire for global agreements or international framework agreements makes sense, the size of the market often leads companies to realise a regional agreement will be the easiest to execute. Local incentive programs are often controlled at the local level, and there is often a hesitancy to roll these incentives up into a global incentive. This is often to the benefit of the fleet manager. As we mentioned, every market has their own unique qualities, so it's important to recognize and understand the differences between your home market and the North American market. However, there are many areas of common ground which can easily be found. Driver safety and the principles that most safety programs espouse are often mostly in common across regions. Finally, a key message to remember is that one size rarely fits all. In other words, it would be difficult to take a program from France or the UK and simply drop it into the North American market as is. There will be some customization required. Our first topic is to talk a little bit about the focus on mobility. The pandemic saw most people transition to working from home. This virtually eliminated the traditional commute as well as client site visits. At this point in time, most businesses do not yet know when they will return to the office, and in some cases have made the decision to remain in a virtual working environment indefinitely. This has the potential to have a dramatic impact on the concept of mobility within North America. The typical two-car family may find that one car is sufficient, and ride-hailing and ride-sharing may be a viable alternative to an owned vehicle. The pace of our return to normality will surely have an impact here. Mike, over to you.
Thanks, David. So I'll talk about supply chain issues. And at the beginning of the COVID-19 shutdowns, many automakers stopped producing new vehicles when their assembly lines were shut down briefly in order so that they could implement additional safety protocols. When these assembly lines returned to operation, many of them were not operating at pre-COVID levels. Earlier this year in the news, we heard about a shortage in semiconductors. This caused some OEMs to stop accepting orders for 2021 models much earlier than usual. Some OEMs even had to remove certain options or packages from their lineup because the supply didn't exist. So it really depends on which manufacturer you're purchasing vehicles from, but the order delivery times these days can be anywhere from 16 to 35 weeks, really depending on the model. I know that a number of fleet managers could not get some orders into the 2021 model year as a result, which is potentially going to create additional demand for the 2022 model year that we haven't seen before. So this has not only impacted fleet orders, but local dealers as well. So this has also created additional challenges for fleets who are looking for vehicles in dealer inventories. They're just simply not there. Which kind of takes me to the next topic. And some fleets are likely to look at possibly extending their replacement cycles due to COVID. And, depending on what industry that you operate in, some fleets, especially those in the delivery space, they're driving now more than they ever have, even before COVID, while some other fleets may not be driving much at all. I know that some of the folks in our sales division, as an example, they're doing everything virtually. They're not getting in a car driving like they used to, which has really impacted the amount of miles that they put on their vehicles. So there's pros and cons. to extending a vehicle's life cycle. And we definitely suggest you do your research and understand the implications of doing that if that's something you're considering. David, I'll swing it back to you.
Great. So nice segue there to the used vehicle market. In short, the used vehicle market is very strong at present. For the most part, supply is low as fleets and consumers postpone their typical replacement cycle, as Mike just explained. But this strong market is tempting a number of fleet managers to move forward with replacements so they can take advantage of these resale values. Next topic is electrification, which is a very exciting topic that is top of mind for a lot of fleet managers these days. A number of manufacturers, including Volvo and Jaguar Land Rover, have made commitments to move to a fully electric platform in the near to midterm. At the same time, other major manufacturers have announced a number of new fully electric product lines. For example, General Motors with a fully electric Silverado and the new Hummer. While North America lags Europe in terms of charging station availability, there is a major push within the Biden administration to build that infrastructure. The next 5 years are really gearing up to be a very exciting place for the electric vehicle space. And Mike, over to you for our final topic.
Great, thanks, David. So in the US and Canadian markets, the open-end track lease is still the most common financing method used by commercial fleets in these markets. It's a lot different than what you may see over in Europe and other parts of the world. This provides organizations with the flexibility to turn in assets early or keep them longer if needed. The residual value risk is on the leasee versus the lessor, which typically translates to lower interest rates and lower fees from the lessor. Some organizations, they're just not comfortable with retaining a vehicle's residual risk and will utilize a closed-end leasing product that most people are commonly familiar with in markets outside of the US and Canada. As David mentioned earlier, the used car market at this point is at a historic high. So currently residual risk is somewhat quite low and has been somewhat predictable over the years. And that's an update from the US and Canada and North American side. So thank you guys for listening to us. We hope to see you in person again at a future Global Fleet Conference or another industry event. In the meantime, stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you to David Hayward and Mike Kamnatar from NAFA for supporting us with this presentation and in making this conference a success. Creating a winning strategy for North America. That is the mission of Rachel Johnson, Fleet Specialist, Region Americas at Konecranes Lifting Businesses, as she will detail that in her case study presentation.
Greetings from North America. Hi, I'm Rachel Johnson, CAFM, Fleet Specialist for Konecranes, Region Americas. Konecranes is a globally operating group of lifting businesses, serving a broad range of customers, including manufacturing and process industries, shipyards, ports, and terminals. I've been fortunate to be a team member and watch the company develop and grow its business for the last 26 years. When I first started, I inherited a small fleet responsibility of about 300 vehicles in the U.S. As I advanced my career, the fleet expanded and evolved with me. I pursued and achieved the NAFA Certified Automotive Fleet Manager, or CAFM certification, in 2008. The fleet is now my primary responsibility under our procurement organization. I try to balance work life with 2 beautiful grandchildren, a newly acquired dream cabin in the woods, and road trips with my husband in our 1950 MGTD and 1979 MGV. We currently have a little over 1,100 vehicles in the U.S. and another 160 vehicles in Canada. We average over 33.9 million miles per year in the U.S. and another 6 million kilometers in Canada. The North American fleet is approximately a third of the global Konecranes vehicle fleet. The majority of our vehicles in North America are light-duty service trucks with added equipment such as toolboxes, ladder racks, and safety items. Then the remainder of the vehicles are sales and management type light-duty trucks with small and mid-sized SUVs. When I started in 1994, we were using the workhorse in the industry, the Ford E250 Econoline van. due to poor fuel economy and the need to pull a small man-lift trailer while still staying below the USD weight regulations, we started implementing the Ford F-150 V8 pickup in 2009. We did see a 2 miles per gallon improvement by doing this. Then in 2015, when fuel prices were continuing to rise, we decided to try the V6 EcoBoost engine, and with great results in fuel savings. Recently, we've been able to incorporate the 2.7-liter V6 EcoBoost engine with no degradation in performance. Over the last few years, we've enjoyed in the US a period of low fuel prices. However, they are now back on the rise. Plus, we have the added initiative to reduce our carbon footprint. Therefore, we are piloting the Ranger pickup and the Transit Connect van to see if they can fulfill this need. The challenge for us is that our technicians carry many heavy tools and parts. Finding a vehicle that can carry this weight and go for many miles, but that still meets our environmental goals, is more difficult than it might seem. The OEMs are working very hard, and there are promising solutions down the road. But unfortunately, adoption to electric vehicles at this time is cost prohibitive and infrastructure challenge. Our other fleet characteristics in the US and Canada include using an open-end lease, which allows for more flexibility on the depreciation terms and visibility and control over the total cost of the vehicle. We also take advantage of the services offered through our fleet management company. These allow us to easily capture the total cost of ownership, benchmark, and be more proactive in our approach to safety and cost savings. The mission of our fleet strategy closely aligns with our company's core values: trust in people, total service commitment, and sustained profitability. To fulfill our mission, we must provide a safe, reliable, and cost-effective tool for our drivers, with ease of access to fuel, maintenance, and collision services, so that they can focus on doing their jobs the best way that they can. The building blocks of our fleet strategy include safety. There is no job so important and no service so urgent that we cannot take the time to perform our work safely and correctly. We have a responsibility to our employees, their families, our customers, and the motoring public. From the selection of the vehicle to the monitoring of driver behavior, we must keep safety at the forefront. Service is the action of helping or doing work for someone. The management of the fleet touches and affects not only the driver, but the company field operations, safety, risk, and financial departments, plus supplier relations. Therefore, it is vital that the fleet department work in cooperation with these other departments and suppliers to keep the vehicle and driver on the road doing their job for our customers. Our suppliers must also have the same level of commitment to provide those goods and services needed to run the program well. From cradle to grave, the ongoing task of the fleet manager is to find a better product and services at the lowest cost option available, develop efficiencies to save time, and improve the areas of cost avoidance. It's vital to have supplier partners that can work together with you to obtain your goals. When sourcing, we do try to reduce the number of suppliers that provide the goods and services we require. We've been able to negotiate global frame agreements with our OEM and our fleet management company. Having a global frame agreement allows for more standardization and data-driven decisions. In the area of cost controls, KPIs, and results, it's all about the data. You can't measure what you don't know. To be proactive, having the data allows you to respond to trends, develop new, or change existing strategies. Some of the key KPIs for us are safety and savings driven. For instance, the installation of telematics allows us to monitor and train on safe driving practices, which in turn lowers our risk of severe collisions and the costs associated with those. What would I do differently if I could? Communicate more. I tend to get stuck in the weeds. While it is equally important to audit invoices, answer driver questions, work with the supplier to implement a product or service, you need to share your goals, progress, and ideas with your drivers, colleagues, and management, and get their feedback as well. Our company, as many others, take our environmental responsibilities seriously. We have a global initiative to reduce our total CO2 emissions by 30% by 2025. As we move towards that goal, we're exploring our options, beginning with downsizing our vehicles and programming our existing vehicles to be more fuel efficient. The future appears to be in EVs, but unfortunately, for the type of work we do, the payload and range are just not there yet. However, we are open and ready to make that change once the right solution is provided. And in the meantime, we will continue to work on other ways that we can reduce our fuel consumption. We've already made good strides towards safety and efficiency by installing GPS monitoring in our vehicles. It provides actionable data that is already changing driver behaviors, but we would like to continue to build upon that program. Mobility is the ability to move or be moved freely and easily, but I like some of the similar words in relation to fleet. They are adaptability, flexibility, and versatility. If there is anything that I've learned over my years in fleet, is that you must be willing to change. Fleet is not stagnant, it moves daily, and the fleet manager must adjust and steer the fleet through those changes. The future is bright. Technology is changing rapidly, providing more safety features and data-driven opportunities. Electric vehicles, leading to zero emissions, are on the way. However, the fundamentals of a good fleet strategy remain constant. Control or reduce cost and deliver a safe and sustainable fleet program. There is simply too much to say about fleet. It is complex with many challenges. However, I love it. I have met so many great people that have helped me along the way, and my day is never boring. North American culture is one of independence and freedom of choice. However, like my colleagues around the world, we are all working towards a common goal of having a well-run fleet. Thank you for your time today, and stay safe.
Thank you, Rachel Johnson from Cranes Lifting Businesses, for this very inspiring case study. In this new case study presentation, Ralph Wessel, Senior Manager Global Facilities, Fleet and Security at AGCO, will present his recipes to successfully deal with suppliers and to leverage cost efficiency in North America. Ralph, the floor is yours.
Hello, my dear fleet colleagues across the globe. It is an honor for me to speak to you once again, sadly, this time virtually. Hopefully, one day soon, we'll be sitting together and able to collaborate and discuss all the things we do and have a little bit fun doing it. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how to successfully create a fleet strategy in North America. Let me introduce you to my company, AGCO Corporation. We are a global leader in the design, manufacturing, and distribution of agriculture farm equipment company. We operate all across the globe. My name is Ralph Wessel. I have 15 years experience in fleet, whereof 14 years are also in international fleet. I manage globally about 2,300 vehicles. In North America, 650 of them. Most of them are leased, some of them are owned. Vehicle configurations in North America are anywhere from a normal passenger vehicle all the way up to a big rig truck. What are the stepping stones when you build a strategy in fleet for North America? Number one, you should find the right OEM partner. Be open-minded when you look at these things, because not every manufacturer you may have experience in your home country is going to be applicable to the United States. What is customary in the United States? You should also remember the best driver support. If a vehicle is properly maintained, your driver should be operating the vehicle on the road instead of staying on the side of the road waiting for somebody to come and assist. Key there is the reliability of these vehicles. Also, you need to consider the residual value. How much is the vehicle going to bring on the open market once you are removing it from your fleet? Warranty and goodwill, particularly when you have good relationship with small OEMs, is another very important factor. As you limit your selection of the OEMs you're dealing with, you're increasing your purchasing power and you increase your negotiating power in case of any issues. Another unique situation is in the United States, the dealers have actually a lot of stock, and you are able to buy a vehicle directly from the lot. If a vehicle is available, it can be bought under the fleet purchase program, or of course, you can factory order the vehicles. Another stepping point is the vehicle selection. Did you know that 9% of all employees base their decision of hire on with an employer based on the kind of car they're driving as a company car? You need to find the best vehicle for the job at hand. What is the task? What is the job your driver have to perform? How can the vehicle meet these needs? Some of the vehicles from foreign markets may not be acceptable in the North American market. And then also, of course, electrical vehicle and hybrids penetration in the United States is far less than some of the other countries in the world. Charging stations are widely available in the big cities, but not necessary on the highways. When considering the fuel, also remember fuel, gasoline is cheaper in the United States than diesel fuel. Pretty much controversy to many of the other countries across the globe. What taxable benefits are there for your selection? Are there certain low emission vehicles which give you a higher tax benefit, or the employee a lower tax liability? And of course, telematics is a standard which is widely available across the United States. Another stepping stone is the setup of how do you purchase/lease the vehicles. If you lease, of course, you have a lower monthly payment versus the buying. Maintenance and service management of these vehicles is included in the lease, and you're utilizing the vehicle through the most trouble-free years, normally between 3 and 4 years, where you can expect low problems. Two leasing options are the closed end, the traditional closed end, where all costs are included, widely available across the globe. Fixed monthly payment, everything is included, based on a mileage or time utilization. It's a little bit higher cost-wise than the open end. The open end lease structure, something unique to the United States. The vehicle lease is charged and the service is separated based on occurrence and performed services. Most of the leasing provider will assist you in managing that process. The residual value with this option lies with you, so make sure you place it and plan the lease out appropriately. Buying high initial financial cost at the time you acquire the vehicles. Another point is you need to find the right fleet management company. It needs to be a true partner, somebody who comes and brings ideas to you. Do your research. Which other colleagues have had similar success or contact with companies in the local market? Who has got reviews? The good thing is all leasing companies will offer you an all-inclusive program. Continuously challenge the status quo. Have check and balances in place to make sure things are handled appropriately. Make sure you set your benchmarking frequencies to ensure that the leasing provider or partner you've chosen is still competitive. Schedule annual reviews with your lease partner where you look in insurance, vehicle acquisition, and overall cost improvement targets. Another very important situation or uniqueness in the United States is the U.S. Department of Transportation. 10,001 pounds and above is what the DOT regulates vehicles. This can be in actual vehicle or vehicle with trailer. It defines the operation and maintenance of these vehicles. The definition, what is a DOT vehicle, how often it needs to be maintained, what is the process of properly maintaining it. It regulates the drivers, who is the driver, who can operate a vehicle, what are the requirements, what is the experience needed, what are the training requirements. It has strict mandates for drug and alcohol policy, and violations will be fined to the operator as well as the owner. To give you an example how extreme the fines are, in an accident case, the highest jury award for a DOT incident ever was $281 million. The key to all of this is to create the right fleet policy. The US, the employer is liable for the driving of his employees. The policy you create should be all-inclusive. Everybody is treated the same. All items are covered. You need to make sure you select the drivers carefully. We have what's called a negligent entrustment, where an employer can be held liable if they give a vehicle to a person or to a driver who should not be driving. You need to make sure you select your drivers carefully. Do background checks in the selection process. You need to conduct training, and you need to monitor your drivers to make sure they comply with the policy. A big additional part, particularly in the DOT side, is the DOT drug and alcohol mandates, which are very strict and have to be strictly complied with. You should find a way to reward and correct certain driver behavior. And then one of the most important points is make sure all of these rules apply to everybody equally. This brings us to the end of our presentation. You can see my email. For any questions and comments, feel free to contact me, and hopefully we will all see each other soon again. Goodbye.
Thank you, Ralph Wessel from ACCO. Great insights that help us with the implementation of a cost-efficient fleet strategy across North America. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our expert panel discussion, How to Boost Fleet Management Efficiency Across North America. North America is known for its preference for open-end leasing. It has predominantly a tool of trade fleet. For these fleets, maximizing the utilization is key, but the market is also open for innovation in electrification, and why not mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, to know if all this is possible, we have invited three experts. May I welcome Kimberly Fisher. Kimberly Fisher is the Global Manager Travel and Fleet at National Oilwell Varco. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you.
Our second guest is Tom Callahan. Tom is the CEO of fleet management company Donlen. Tom, welcome in this panel discussion.
Thank you, Stephen.
And finally, we have Vincent Flans, President Corporate Sales at Sixt. Vincent, also to you, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
So we are going to discuss fleet efficiency across North America. And Kimberly, I would like to start with you. You are the fleet manager in our club. Kimberly, can you first of all tell us how many vehicles do you manage on a global level and in North America?
So globally right now, sort of under my umbrella is about 6,000 units. In North America specific, we're probably with equipment and rolling fleet, we're at about 5,000.
Okay. Kimberly, North America seems quite an easy region in terms of vehicle fleet management. There is one language. It has a good supplier offering. It has similar best practices across the US and Canada. What makes it challenging for you and you think for other fleet managers? And secondly, how to overcome those challenges?
So I think that for the last year or two and into this year, I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be supplier shortages that we're experiencing, which is really on a global level. But in the US, I think that it becomes an even bigger issue, especially for somebody that's in my industry, which is oil and gas. We've had tough market conditions for the last several years, so our replacement policies have not been followed as stringently as they would have been normally, just because we've had to extend that. So as I look into 2022 and that model ordering, I have some concerns about supply. And I think that for a lot of fleet managers, it has become even exponentially more important to not just have that great relationship with your manufacturers and your leasing companies and the various vendors that you use to be aware of kind of what the market conditions are and where the shortages are going to be and how you can sort of navigate through that. But also just as important, that I think has become exponentially more important, is to communicate that with our internal shareholders to say, hey, because our market conditions have been so bad the last couple of years, coupled that now with the market conditions for manufacturers and getting deliveries, here's what you kind of need to be aware of. And instead of sort of this last minute ordering, which we historically have done, we need to do a better job of planning, because that 12 to 14 week delivery time may be extended extensively. Like just being able to find vehicles may be a bit harder in 2022 than we've ever experienced. And so for a lot of my peers that I've spoken to, one of the big things that we're focusing on is also just educating internally, like here's how this is going to affect us, and we need to plan accordingly, or we're going to have some challenges in meeting our customer demands.
Okay. Tom, you are the CEO of Donlen, a leasing and fleet management company. Can you give us an idea about how many vehicles you manage today in North America?
We manage approximately 250,000 vehicles in North America, US and Canada.
Okay. Are there mostly vans, pickups, trucks?
The majority are vans and pickups. In North America, it's a tool of trade, like you said. and probably 70% of our collateral is vans and trucks of various classes.
Okay. How is the shortage in supply affecting you as a service supplier for many fleet customers across North America?
It's definitely affecting us. Supply chain is critical. The chip shortage is affecting us. Lead times are affecting us. It's affecting some of our replacement as well. Fleets are extending replacements. We're working with the OEMs and trying to get as granular as we can around the supply chain. But there's no question, as Kimberly said, it's an ongoing challenge. And I think we've all read that I think OEMs are going to take some steps to control more of that in the future.
Okay. Tom, I would like to continue with you. The supplier market, both in terms of fleet management and on the OEM side, seems very corporate oriented and a corporate customer driven. How do you see the supplier market evolve in the near future? Do you expect any movements?
Yes, I see, it's a corporate market, but I definitely see movement toward more mobility solutions in certain areas in the US and Canada around dense areas. We have several of our clients that have asked for pilots in both electrification and in areas of dense urban areas where they may not need a dedicated corporate vehicle. We've also seen interest in pooled management as well. And again, continued emphasis on strategic consulting, how best to look at a fleet in totality and figure out what's the best use case, and also with electrification, how best to pilot something effective.
Vincent, I come to you. Since when is Sixt active across North America?
We are active in North America since 2011, so almost 10 years now. And we serve a 3-digit number of branches, including 38 out of the 40 biggest airports.
Okay. The answer of Tom may sound very nice for you, because he is referring also that there could be in North America a demand for more flexibility, innovation, and we know from Europe, where your headquarters is, that Sixt is often at the forefront of innovation. Now, North America is also known for its lack of benefit vehicles and its experience with job need and functional cars. Knowing that cost efficiency, certainly in these times, particular times, it's really critical. Do you expect that the North American fleet market will change in terms of type of vehicles, size of vehicles, how they are going to use the vehicles?
That's a very interesting question. It combines various questions, by the way. Probably let me add to what Tom said before. It is very interesting that the very transparent model how fleet managers work in the US is now a disadvantage to those companies. Imagine the European fleet managers much more, and leasing companies following much more operating lease model. It is pretty clear that they now have big wins in terms of money due to the lower mileage, less tire consumption, less mileage on the car due to the pandemic where they didn't drive. Pretty clear is that there is a change coming up as well in the fleet environment of American fleets. For sure, they will shrink, but pretty clear to achieve efficiency in fleet, it is much more to use tools like share, rent, ride, and other services, which bring flexibility and additional services to the final consumer, who mainly as well is a corporate customer. Mm-hmm. Interesting in that respect is that corporate and B2C demand grow together in that respect. Mm-hmm. Because when you have your app, like we offer one in Europe, but as well in the US, we offer those apps and as well subscription programs and everything, you use them for corporate purpose or for private purpose, but then it grows into one. So there we see a big chance, like the Amazon wheel, you know,
Okay.
that due to cross-selling and upselling of new solutions, we can win more business in the core as well. And this is the reason why we add services like e-scooters and others.
Kimberly, are you open for those new innovations that Vincent is also mentioning in his answer, and perhaps even to change a little bit the financing, the funding, the management of your fleet to eliminate risks in the future?
So sharing vehicles is not a good fit, at least for our organization. We have very specific tool of the trade with additional equipment, welders, service bodies that make that very difficult to share a vehicle. What we are looking at is within business groups that use the same types of vehicles. Can we downsize the vehicle they're using to be a little bit more fuel efficient? Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We're also tied to oil and gas, so it's a tricky slide because we're not necessarily against fuel usage. Having said that, our company is a services company. We develop technology as well as equipment, and we recognize that while we've been around for 100+ years, if we want to be around for another 100+ years, we have to adapt to the alternate fuel sort of way of thinking in the direction that the world seems to be moving. And so we are investing in technologies that would help, whether it be solar or wind or equipment that can also be adapted for those sort of streams for energy uses as well. So this is the first time that I've ever had any sort of interest in doing electric vehicles, which I'm sort of a little bit excited about, that we may actually do a pilot on a very small scale, because again, for the sort of what we call our bread and butter vehicle, that's not an option right now. But for where we can downsize and do electric, we are for the first time ever sort of taking a look at that, and does it make sense, and can we do a small pilot and then expand on that if it does make sense for our usage.
Okay, would like to continue about fleet electrification, because this is of course also a topic that is interesting in other regions. We have read with the entrance of the new Biden administration, the huge investment plans in terms of electrification, investments to create jobs and so on. I have it here on the screen. The new Biden administration wants to invest $174 billion to win the EV market in the US. Tom, what do you think about that, and how will that drive forward fleet electrification?
I think it's definitely going to drive forward. That's a big investment. It's a 2.25 overall infrastructure budget. A lot of it is also in some social infrastructure as well, over $800 billion. So it's going to jumpstart things. The devil's in the detail regarding this. These goals, 2050, net carbon emission neutral, a reduction in emissions to 2005 levels, 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. So these are aggressive goals, but you have to commend the leadership around it. And again, I think that's going to spur a lot of investment. You've seen all the OEMs basically saying between 2030 to 2035, they're going to be predominantly electrified with their fleets as well. I also think we're seeing, to Kimberly's point, additional electrification of vehicles in vans and trucks, which I think in our space will spur the adoption more than previously. So that's an exciting time, because I now think not only the infrastructure has a chance to get there, the charging stations, the speed, the battery infrastructure as well, which frankly, from a US perspective, we're behind China and Europe as far as overall development there. But together with the additional OEMs coming in with vans and trucks, I think it's going to spur adoption faster.
Okay, I see Vincent's nodding yes. Vincent's, a brief comment perhaps?
Yeah, I'm not in a position to be in that detail what Biden says there. It's pretty clear. He states that the Paris Agreement is coming back into play. And I see some states like California being very progressive since quite a while, and some cities as well. But we need to understand that the pure size of the country and how the size supports the different use cases and distances is a big difference to Europe. So I would see that coming rapidly into the US. They have a very strong base with Tesla, even if the volumes are not as big. We see a big competition from China. The Europeans are coming as well into that segment. Everybody is changing their infrastructure to build those cars. So pretty clear they will come to the US, and we will face a big growth.
Okay. Would like to continue with Kimberly. Kimberly, let's talk about connectivity and telematics. Is it a given or is it recommended to equip your fleet with connectivity and telematics across North America?
So we order everything now with connectivity, and we do have a lot of business units who utilize that. We are also rolling out a telematics program throughout North America, and that's not optional. Every vehicle in our fleet will have telematics, and I'm really excited about it. I think that it will allow us to sort of harness some data that we've never been able to access, both in driver behavior and the vehicles themselves, and help with life cycling on the vehicles. Kind of a second phase of that, we do a lot of, our industry is known for lots of idle time. And I'm excited to sort of take a look at that and see if we can't shrink that. We'll never do away with all of it, but I'd like to shrink some of that idle time. And you can't do that if you don't have the data. So I'm super excited about it.
Tom, perhaps to continue, I know that Donlan has quite some expertise when it comes to connectivity and telematics. Of course, we have a global fleet audience, and perhaps they are living in regions where there might be still some concerns about technology and connectivity. What would be your advice to them when they come into North America, have a fleet over there? Do they need to equip their vehicles with telematics?
I would say yes. My personal view is every vehicle now is going to be pretty much equipped with the ability to deal with telematics, but I think it makes all the products and services within fleet better if you have telematics. For some of the same things that Kimberly talked about, my goal would basically for every one of our customers to be on it. I think with you're dealing with North America and you're dealing with cost optimization, cost savings, things like that, work trucks, I think telematics is a huge piece of that. We've been at this for 10 plus years. We started with driver behavior, driver training, that kind of thing. Now it's become a safety and a productivity tool. It can help with emission controls as well, utilization. So it's a very powerful tool to utilize. And I think go forward, it's going to be even more impactful. The adoption rate, I think, started with larger fleets and is moving through to even smaller fleets. It's just a huge enabler for everything we do in fleet management. The other thing I would recommend to anybody, though, understand the use case, though. Understand why you're using it, the ROI, and somebody in the company must be a champion at the senior level to make sure it happens. We have unfortunately been sometimes when you go back and check to see how well did that use case meet the ROI, we're disappointed because we didn't do the homework up front. So understand exactly why you're using it, check yourself, set milestones, get a champion within your company to drive it.
Okay, perfect. Vincent, we are working from home. We are working from home a lot. Will working from home have an impact on the duration and the type of fleet contracts in North America?
Yes, and it already has an impact on our business. In the B2B context, we are facing an enormous demand to increase the flexibility of company fleets. With a growing share of mobile work, employees' expectations of company car features are changing. And employees want to vary between car model sizes, between internal combustion and electric cars, and overall tend to get by with smaller mileage packages compared to pre-pandemic times. So companies would like to transform their rather rigid fleet into a flexible fleet, but also better cost controlling depending on the economic situation of the company. And there I'm fully with Tom, where we find a very different landscape in Europe than in the US. It is very useful to implement the connectivity tools to steer the fleet, which is not the case here, at least in Western Europe. In the UK it is, and in Central Europe, but not as much in the countries where we live.
Okay. Tom, what is the main difference in fleet management between Canada and the US?
One of the differences in Canada is a smaller fleet market. Average fleet size in Canada, 35 to 70 vehicles. So you have to keep that in mind. At the same time, though, there's also high energy out in Western Canada. There's been some impact on the lockdown. Canada's had some significant lockdown challenges throughout that. So that's part of the difference as well. The other thing too, just to be mindful, be very specific to the Canadian needs, make sure that you're not US centric, and that the customer facing piece that we found is better Canadian, so that we don't forget that culture is very important. So when it's North America, just make sure you look at both US and Canada, and you treat Canada as more than an accommodation.
Okay. Kimberly, what is your main tip for fleet managers stepping into the North American fleet marketplace?
So I'm going to piggyback onto what Tom said. Recognize that they're not the same countries. Ask questions that are specific to the country you're going into, whether that be the US or Canada, because there are going to be, it doesn't seem like there would be differences, but there really are. And what I have found is, and this is really true of as you go globally anywhere, make sure that you understand how business is being done. So I can have the same division in the US and the same division in Canada, but they don't necessarily perform the same way. And so their needs from a vehicle perspective may not be the same. So make sure to ask questions internally, but also ask questions of your vendors, and not just your current vendors, but potential vendors. Because the other thing I have found is if you sort of can build a network of vendors that you can rely on, sometimes your current vendor defaults to how you do business, which is fine, but sometimes you need a little bit of innovation, and that sometimes comes from potential vendors, not current vendors. So I would say sort of ask questions, but don't limit who you're asking your questions of.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to end this panel discussion here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you to the experts. I would like to thank Kimberly Fisher, Tom Callahan, and Vincent Flams for their insights. We have learned more about the fleet management marketplace in North America with some key difference between the US and Canada. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the Regional Stream North America. Thank you to our expert speakers for sharing their knowledge. If you would like to know more about this region, please go to the on-demand section to watch the country deep dive about the United States, presented by Dennis Grake, Head of Fleet at Polestar US. See you.